in a historic location. 7 years ago, the Paris Agreement was signed in 2016, yet climate impact intensifies, and we've been moving further away from the goals that were agreed during the agreement. Last year, in decades, global poverty rate has increased by 70 million. The COVID-19 pandemic, ongoing conflict, and natural disasters have led to a tremendous impact on vulnerable communities. I just want to think about that for a second. So these are vulnerable people, and when you think about the impact that it's had to our own lifestyle, we're seeing that the impact to income has been twice as devastating. And some of the largest setbacks that they're experiencing are in areas like education and in health. So who am I to be standing up here and to be talking to all of you about this today? My grandparents and mother are originally from a small town in Zacatecas, Mexico, that didn't have access to running water or electricity. I like to say I grew up in the shadow of Silicon Valley. They made the choice when my mother was young to move to the US and become migrant farm workers. And they harvested the fields of Silicon Valley before it became Google, Facebook, and Apple. I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today if they hadn't made that decision. And I want to express that I've seen firsthand how existing financial systems fails those that need it most. But at the same time, I've seen how technological innovation has the power to change lives and uplift communities like my own. It's time for urgent, large-scale transformation. When we think about the existing models that exist in the world today, we know that it prioritizes things like short-term profits over long-term sustainability, leading to environmental degradation, social inequalities, and economic instability. So I want to invite you to imagine a different future, a path where we focus on regenerative finance, where it can become a force for positive change and shared prosperity. Regenerative finance has the power to change the world as we know it today. It recognizes the interconnectedness of environmental, social, and economical themes, and it brings them all together to create a new system that is not only socially just, but also environmentally sustainable. So how can regenerative finance change the world? We know that blockchain technology has the power to really transcend borders, transcend areas like culture and politics. It has the potential to democratize ownership and reallocate resources to those that need it most. But to do this, we need protocols that focus on themes like environmental sustainability, social justice and inclusion, and economic resilience. So I wanted to kind of spend a few minutes talking about some of the use cases and projects that are building on Celo. And I'll start with one, Gainforest. They're going to be speaking later today. And really, this was, I think, a project that is near and dear to my heart. So they have been working and using AI to really support reforestation efforts. There are communities in the Philippines that have the opportunity to be a part of this change, to measure the impact of the reforestation, earn incentives for doing this, and easily cash out to pesos. So this is taking an existing model where we typically will send consultants around the world to measure this impact and really empowering local communities to do this. Another project I'd like to highlight is Ethic Hub. Ethic Hub focuses on under-collateralized lending to unbanked farmers in areas like Chiapas, Mexico. So in this case, they're providing loans that allow these farmers to buy seed, to buy farm equipment. These farmers are now able to take their goods and to deliver them into new markets. So traditionally, where beans would be taken to a local hoarder, they would mix the beans, and then they would sell them based on volume. Now these farmers are able to take their beans and sell them as specialized coffee in areas like Europe. And their faces glow when they're able to see that they are now have their product, their crop that they've nurtured over time, now available to new faces around the world. Another area that I wanted to highlight was universal basic income. There are two great projects building on Celo. One is called Impact Market, and the other is called Good Dollar. Impact Market in particular is working with the Women's Rights Initiative of Uganda. This is supporting young women who are victims of domestic abuse and really teaching them how to understand finances, right? To go through financial education, economic empowerment, and entrepreneurship by not only receiving a UBI, but also receiving an under-collateralized loan. And the last project that I wanted to highlight is, who's also here this weekend, is Grassroots Economics. And they've been doing amazing work with mutual credit to stimulate local economies, using new smart contracts that are based on Demridge that really empower local communities through these complementary currencies. So these are just a few of the projects that are contributing to the Celo ecosystem. Celo was launched on Earth Day of 2020. Celo's mission is to build a regenerative economy that creates conditions of prosperity for everyone. And it's a platform that's built for radical regeneration. So there are Web3 building blocks that are environmental and mobile first. Primitives such as social connect that maps phone number to an address that abstracts the complexity of blockchain for the everyday user, that allows somebody with a $20 mobile phone to really access a lot of the applications that we're talking about today. Fiat Connect, which creates a standard for on and off ramps, and a new standard called Ultra Green, which sends a portion of fees to an on-chain carbon fund. Celo ecosystem has also been built on this focus on real world problems like I shared with you today, and has this beautiful community. Many of you are in the room that are focused on these real world problems, but also global and inspiring each other. So how do we measure success as an industry? This may be a little controversial, so bear with me. Today, when we think about how we measure success in blockchain, we look at metrics like total value locked. And while this is an important metric, it's targeted towards the largest capital holders, like whales, and it leaves out all of those beautiful stories and those individuals that I mentioned today. So how can we redefine a new measure of success? Before the Celo network, before Celo mainnet went live in 2019, two of my colleagues, Will and Angelo, published something called the Theory of Change. And we really thought long and hard about how we could measure success of Celo. And we anchored around 4 areas. Are we able to ensure that people's basic needs are met? Do they have access to food, to shelter, to medicine? Are individuals able to grow personally and professionally? Are we supporting each other? Are we supporting our communities? And are we supporting this beautiful planet that we live on? We have been working on this proof of impact and really being able to measure this metric. There are 2.5 million unique active addresses on Celo, 550,000 recipients of UBI, 4 million micro workers, 4.1 million micro loans. These are, again, small loans that have been issued to individuals, 4,000 tons of carbon that have been offset, and 1.8 kilograms of plastic that has been recovered. So I'm really proud of this impact, but we know that in order to change this definition and this measure of success, it requires collaboration and collective action. So really proud to be jamming with Carl, who's in the audience, also on how we could use impact certs as a standard to really measure this impact, not only on Celo, but also on all of the chains. So as we think about this path ahead, it requires, again, this collective action and coordination. We need to work outside of our industry as well with local governments, financial institutions, nonprofits, and mission-aligned enterprises to create more awareness and education. We need to support one another to develop new standards, and we need to use our voice to support those that need it most. So I invite you all to join the movement. Let's keep this conversation going. I included a QR code here that has a link to some of the projects that I talked about today, and would also love for you to join this working group on social impact so we can think about how we can collectively make this change. All right. Thank you.